All right. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll give it, a little bit so everybody can get their audio configured. But we've got a lot to cover today. I'm really excited to be leading kind of today's session. So we won't waste too much time here at the start, and we'll jump right into it. But thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to join, the series that we're putting out of AI in the C-suite. So really, the intent here is to cover how Maxio leaders are leveraging MCP. Definitely a spotlight on Maxio MCP, but today's session as well, I think a lot of the concepts in the actual build we're going to go through is applicable for a broad array of MCPs or model context protocols. We're going to try to make today's session super interactive. So the more involved that you all are in the chat or in the Q&A, you should see it in the top right corner. There's a Q&A section. I'll try to layer in a lot of those answers as we're going through the process. But first, before we jump into the actual demo and the build process, let's go through a couple of slides. A little bit background on myself. Been here at Maxio for almost 9 years now, which is incredible. But prior to that, my background's more on the operations finance side. Came to Maxio as a avid user of Maxio in my day-to-day. And then really pleased to, over that journey, a variety of different roles, but now to be heading up our product organization. So we're going to be talking today a little bit about how I leverage the Maxio MCP in conjunction with other MCPs and offerings out there. We'll go through the demo of that flow. We're taking a look at the registrants. There's a broad array of participants today, mostly customers, but different personas within those customers. So operations, finance, accounting, sales operations, and some product folks, sprinkled in as well. So regardless of what role you're in, there's going to be a lot of really rich content that you can take from this, as we go through the process. I'm going to start with a couple of polls just to get a sense of, the audience that we've got today and your level of comfort level. So the first is really going to be around which LLM platform do you use the most. So we'll go ahead and launch that poll. If you could just take a second to answer that. That'll help me as I go through today's process and today's flow, which we're going to be building inside of Claude, to help tailor some of the audience and Q&A piece to that section. So you should be able to go ahead and respond and answer there. Give that a second. All right, so we can go ahead and close that poll. So you should be able to see the responses there. Heavy Claude cohort, some ChatGPT, OpenAI cohort as well. Some others mixed in, and then some. Hey, not actively using an LLM today. That's okay. Hopefully, with the content that you're seeing here today, we'll get you inspired to be in that cohort that's using it daily. And on that note, one other thing that I want to go ahead and poll for is of those that are leveraging like an LLM like Claude or ChatGPT, how many of you all have started to interact and build connectors or connect to MCPs? So we'll go ahead and launch that poll as well, just so I can get a sense of experience level for our audience. Again, just answer it truthfully and honestly, regardless of your experience level. There's going to be a lot of rich content to take away here. And then we'll give that a second to come through. Okay. Got a decent population. We'll go ahead and close that. So, 33% never, others, once or twice, and then a couple people, kudos to you using it daily, which is awesome. And then one final poll that we've got is the, your familiarity with skills, or in OpenAI's term, kind of building out tools. We are going to cover some of that content today as well, and actually give you some preview of how to leverage skills. It's not as intimidating as it sounds. So we'll go ahead and leave that polling question. While that one's going on, let me step it forward. So, given that we have a broad array of experience levels here, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. You can kind of think of it as a, type of smart API in the sense that it is interacting with your existing solutions and providers that you have today, but it gives a consistent kind of protocol um, for how these large language models like Claude or ChatGPT can interface with your applications and your systems that you're using day in and day out, like Maxio. There's also a layer of kind of logic around it. So Maxio, being the publisher of our MCP, can actually provide a list of tools and then kind of provide that context part of the MCP around how to leverage those tools by the provider themselves. So like it's basically like having Maxio kind of right there driving right next to you with all of the knowledge that we have on how to best leverage our system, kind of package those things up into an MCP server and offering, which really manifests itself as a connector in your application. So the Maxio MCP is going to be the highlight of today. We're going to talk about how to leverage it. Many software providers are rolling out their MCP. We've been in market with ours coming up on 8 months now. So have been able to evolve that. But truly, it's a plain natural language way of interfacing with your data. So in Maxio's case, you can ask it and prompt it, just questions about your billing data, your analytics data, payments data, et cetera, really as a great discovery tool. The other thing it does is unify that data. We're going to be running through some examples as we build out kind of a product-oriented facing dashboard of being able to leverage Maxio to pre-aggregate and pre-run those reports, narrowing the context window that has to be pulled into your large language model, therefore saving you on tokens, and then actually creating actionable data. And I think that's the piece. If you attended our prior series, Brandon, our CEO, did a phenomenal job of walking through how he uses Claude on a daily basis, connected to Maxio through our MCP to ask it questions. And a few of the examples were like, hey, I'm jumping on this call with this customer, help me understand their history, their data, all of that richness pulled into your fingertips. From a product manager's perspective, heading up our product organization, it's phenomenal. That same example, better understanding our customers, ensuring that we're building what truly matters to both you as our customer and to our stakeholders as a company, to ensure that we're also looking out for shareholder value. And then it also allows us to just frankly move faster. And so through the build today, we're going to talk a lot about the data and the insights and tailoring it to the persona that I serve and heading up product, and how we can extend that to other areas of the application. So with that, right, slides, let's jump out of slides. Let's go ahead and transition over. First thing that we're going to see here is I'm going to come into Claude Cowork. So, this is different from just going to Claude in your browser. If you've seen it, if you've gone into Claude, or ChatGPT has a similar offering as well, it allows you to download and install a desktop application. It's basically Claude on steroids, or the functionality is so much greater versus the browser piece. Now, if you're familiar with the browser piece, you could always move back over into chat. But Cowork itself actually functions a lot like chat. You can ask it your chat questions. You can kind of move through it. But there's a couple unique things that we're going to touch on in today's build, which is some of the skills and the ability to actually schedule these tasks. So really starting to get into more of the agentic aspect of it and automation aspect, which is going to be really, really fun. So for today's build, what we're going to do is we're going to build out a product-oriented dashboard, right? So, every company I've been a part of, you generally are going to have like a weekly flash report produced typically by finance. Maybe it's board facing, maybe it's internal facing, or your exec team facing, but it's kind of a flash report around company performance, around ARR, et cetera. Now, I love that from my prior years, right, of more of that finance orientation. But as a product leader, right, like the insights I need are going to be very different from the insights that our sales leader might need, or our CEO might need, or our board might need. And, up until, relatively recently with the advent of AI, the ability to tailor that dashboard and that report and pull in multiple different data sources has been quite difficult. So we're going to start out and we're going to walk through the process of building a dashboard in Claude, how to actually build some skills so that we can reproduce the same dashboard on a reoccurring basis, whether it be daily, weekly, every Saturday, right? So you're going to actually walk through and see some of those tips and tricks. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to build this live. If we need to fall back to, some of the runs I've done previously, we can. I'm going to try to maximize our time together as much as possible. I'll actually cover how I just did that prompt insert if you missed it. That is a technique that if you're interfacing with, ChatGPT or Claude, you find yourself kind of typing through the same prompts time after time again, there's a little bit of a shortcut there. So we'll go ahead and run this. Now, a couple things as we go through this that I'm going to just touch on as it runs and pulls the data, just some overall concepts. We're going to first talk about prompting and techniques, and my style of prompting might be different from others. And, there's a lot of great content creators out there that talk about like the richness of using personas and stepping it through. Generally, I think of it as in terms of like, I like to just build the prompt itself as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give it the first report inside of Maxio. And this report is just kind of my baseline report that I'm going to ask it to pull in all of that data. Now, this is already pre-connected to Maxio's MCP. So if you go down here to connectors, we actually see, my Maxio in this demo instance, it's Weber & Co. is connected. In a little while, I'll walk through kind of that process to fully get it set up. But I just wanted to orient, like, this is the start of our build itself. Now, if we actually come in and look at this report itself, this is just a simple baseline report from Maxio of this demo data, and it's ARR from January 22 all the way through March 26. Now, a couple things that you're going to start to notice as we're going through this build process. I'm not, giving it access to all of the data, all of the, in this case, probably hundreds of thousands of rows of underlying customer data, et cetera. I'm isolating it to, let's just start with the ARR by month, over time and over this period of time. I'll go through some techniques of scheduling reports and how you can actually build those, how you can segment these reports that you're going to use for the MCP perspective. But one of the nice things about relying on Maxio to pre-aggregate that data is you can minimize the amount of data that's having to be pulled into your LLM of choice. So you can see here, it's gone ahead and pulled in that report data. It's going ahead and charting it out. And one of the reasons I really like Claude for this, and here at Maxio, we use both ChatGPT and Claude. I look at, ChatGPT, I probably use more frequently just from a day-to-day. And then Claude I use from a building perspective, because what you see here immediately, it starts to go ahead and build, a dashboard based on that report data. The other thing is, like, and this probably wasn't as true 6 months ago, I like to give a lot of agency to the LLM itself, right? And then we refine it. So it's going ahead and taking that report data and putting together a really slick interactive dashboard, already just pulling that data, pulling the month over MRR. I can see the month change, some highlights on the growth data. Looks awesome, right? And we're going to continue to build on this approach. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my next prompt and say, hey, this is great, but let's go ahead and add an executive summary. So we'll go ahead and launch that executive summary. While that's running, notice I did a / command. That's going to be really important. It's a concept that, Claude uses quite frequently to run skills. What I'm actually doing here is a keyboard replacement, just so you don't have to sit here and watch me, type these prompts out or copy and paste. And just to show you, because I think this is, awesome, and you can use it in your daily life. You can come into, if you're using a Mac, for instance, you can come down into the text replacements, and then you can actually build in, hey, if you use this text, replace it with this. That's a huge time saver. If you find yourself like, a good example would be a prompt if you're trying to draft an email and you start out, or a Slack message, and you're like, hey, in my voice and tone, help me iterate on this email response, right? How many times are we typing that out every single day? That's a great example of doing a keyboard replace. Mac makes it super easy. And I would just do like, / my voice and tone, or something even shorter, so I can just easily generate that. Now, what we can see real time is it's already generated my executive insights. Okay, great. So we're building the foundation for this dashboard that I'm going to use as if it's my personally tailored flash report of ARR. Now, at this point, it's still very, very finance oriented. Like this would be very similar to what you would see going out to the board or generic reporting. But as a product leader, I want to make this more tailored about the underlying growth data. Like what products are driving that growth? What's our average selling price or average ARR, or what product lines are we expanding, et cetera. So let's go ahead and start layering that in. And if we look at this next example, right, I'm saying, hey, I like where this is going, but let's include an ARR by product line, right? Because as a product leader, one of the things that you're constantly looking at is what products are getting adoption in terms of ARR, how many customers are subscribing to it. And then I'm also saying, hey, in November, we launched 2 new products, right? So in this demo, Weber & Co., right in November, we launched 2 usage-based product lines. Those are net new products. So let's go ahead and pull in that data. And if we take a look back inside of Maxio, what's going on, this is that same ending ARR report from January 22 all the way through 26, but this time it's segmented with drill down details where I can see by item or product family here what the ending ARR is. So this is, if you're not familiar with our subscription momentum report, an insanely powerful report. You can build subtotals. You could actually have these drill down even further and have the customer count. But since this is already a pretty large data set as is with the number of cells and rows, I don't necessarily want to pull in the thousands of customers that are available that you could build to drill into. Again, the reason for that is I want to rely on Maxio to pre-calculate, pre-aggregate that so that the amount of data that's getting pulled into Claude in this case minimizes the total token reach. Right. And so what all I did, just if you missed it, is I'm just giving it the URL here. Right. So inside of Claude, if I come back to this, right, I just gave it the actual report run. And there are 2 tools, like you can actually come in and click in and see what it's doing. Because I gave it a log file, it's using that existing run. And that's really a part of the magic of the MCP. There are other tools that are part of the Maxio MCP that if you just gave it the report ID, it would actually go out, call the report, run the report, and return the results, which is just really cool. In this case, I want to speed it up. So I'm giving it a run that's already been there. And now it pulled in the data quite quickly. It's going through and actually spending most of the time generating the HTML and the visuals that we're going to see and add to this. So what's great is now I'm starting to see it build out. It's given me the ARR by product line. So the data, as you saw inside of Maxio, was the bronze, gold, platinum subscription. These are the 2 new products that we rolled out in November, API calls and storage in this demo data. And it's starting to build out my interactive dashboard down here as well. So really cool functionality. The other thing that I love about this approach with the Maxio MCP is I can actually come in and audit this data, right? Like if there's always this kind of tension of trust but verify, and because it's pulling the report data, because I'm giving it the actual specific report and I can see the data itself, I can always come back over to these report runs and validate that the ending ARR, right, is accurate based on the product lines and the overall movement of that. So you can actually drill down and validate and verify the data. There's a lot of talk about AI hallucinations. Yes, you still need to validate and verify the data because in some instances it might get confused inside of the LLM how it's generating the data. But more and more often it's getting it right on the first try, and a lot less time needed to actually go in and validate. But the fact that with Maxio you can come in and click in and actually drill into the underlying data set helps instill that level of confidence in it. But what I kind of continue to emphasize is if I wanted to truly build this approach and this dashboard, prior even just a few months ago, this would be a lot more difficult. But phenomenal visualizations already here showing kind of that upward movement from the 2 new product lines. It's given me kind of a matrix of the percents. I might say, hey, that product, current product mix is good. Let's add percentages to the current product mix chart for better readability. And in this case, right, I'm just evolving and iterating this as we go through. And my executive summary down here is evolving and looking pretty good. Now, a couple comments that I'll make, right? I'm demoing the Maxio MCP. because we're Maxio, right? And I can build the demo set and the demo data. Um, the major unlock here, though, is for myself, leading product, we use quite a few different solutions. Several of them are customers, but there's a lot of them that provide product insights like Pendo or Full Story. Atlassian even. I can actually use those MCP connectors and pull in that product level data as well. But the important thing is starting the baseline on the ARR perspective. So I can come in and do that. And now I've got my percentages, and I still have the interactive kind of nature on this. Let me take a quick look at the chats in the Q&A. I've got a couple so far that we're going to address here in a minute. So keep moving through, but you can clearly see where we're going with this. So now let's go ahead and do my next prompt. Actually, do prompt 4. All right, so this is good. Now, generally, because it's building kind of in a sequential order, my executive summary kind of got pushed down a little bit. So, we're going to edit that, but then let's also include an average ARR by product, right? This is pretty good. It's showing me my product mix, my monthly ramp. I've got, a stacked line chart, so I can see how that's evolved over time. Nice little widget summarizations of my total ARR. But like, what about my average? Like, what's the average selling price of all my customers for these different product lines? And we'll go ahead and run that report too. Now, as this one goes through, let's jump back over into Maxio and talk a little bit about some of the techniques here. So let me pull the report over. All right. This one's actually using a different report type. So it's our cohort report, but it's still filtered by item name. And it's using the average ARR over time. So I can see, my bronze level subscription averages 43,000. It's kind of stayed relatively consistent over time with this demo data. Gold subscription, same thing. Now the platinum subscriptions had some fluctuation in it. And then our new offering starting in November, right? Pretty consistent offering, trend line here as well. But let's show a couple things of what's actually occurring behind the scenes. So I can come into my report list, and the first view, generally, if you're an admin, is kind of a view of all reports. You'll notice a technique of using tags. So in this demo data, I've got some for Domo, in this case, the MCP. What this allows me to do is build those reports that are going to be tailored to my MCP. So you can see these, you can see the different run dates, and you can see some different ideas on how to build and configure these. If you're not actively using our tags for our reports, you can actually come in and edit one of these reports, and it's just simply adding a tag down here. Allows you to better filter and view and run that report. So some organizational techniques. The other thing is, as this is going through, you can actually come into the report history and see these reports being run. If in this case, it's just pulling and fetching a report that's already completed. If I were to prompt it to run a report, the auditability and traceability is still here within inside of Maxio. So you can actually see that it's being run, who it's being run by, or in this case, being run by the API. All of that rich data is still there. As we get a little bit further in this build process, I am going to take a huge step back and say, okay, like, how did I get here? How did I connect to Maxio? Talk a little bit about the controls around it and the permission sets. But let's jump back into Claude and see how we're going. So we've updated the dashboard, right? And if we scroll all the way down, right, now I get to see average ARR per customer by these product lines, great visualizations, my average API calls, platinum, gold, bronze subscriptions. And then, okay, why did this fall off? And this is where it starts to get really fun. You're spending less time having to build the reports and build the dashboards. You could, and we will, do a whole session around some of these anomalies, the close process. We've got Dan, our CFO, that's leading a session that's coming up. It's going to be oriented a little bit more towards this. And then you can see some of the pricing details. Now, what's great is you can actually then come in and see, what's the stability of it? Hey, there's an item here that we want to go in and investigate. So lots of flexibility in how you kind of go through and run that process. All right. So one thing though is it's building more of a generic kind of report. So let's change it to more of the product lens. And at this stage of the build, frankly, what I'd be doing is pulling in other sources of data to build this dashboard. Whether it be from Pendo, from Full Story, from Salesforce. One of the things that we do here at Maxio is we've got a customer success team that's meeting with you all and our customers. A lot of rich insights that's being transcribed from those calls could actually pull in some product level details of where some friction points might be. The other thing that this dashboard is really focused on is expansion and ARR being driven from a new business perspective. I'd probably build in a whole set of reports around churn and pulling in the churn data, right? Churn's not just a customer success issue. It's definitely a product issue. And how can product be more aware and more attuned to some of those friction points so you can come in and kind of evolve that process. So now we're getting there, right? Product lens, Weber & Co. The other thing it's doing behind the scenes is it's actually building the HTML, right? So behind the scenes, you can see this. And this is super important. I think a lot of us that are using just LLMs to, go through the motions of analyzing data, it's more in the lens of, one-off inspection. We just want to bring us back up a minute. Like, what are we building here? We're building a dashboard that we're going to use repeatedly, time and time again. And so the fact that Claude's behind the scenes building that code for us is a phenomenal outcome. So let's continue to expand on the data set a little bit. And let's include some expansion data. All right, so this shows our average ARR, but really, what about existing customers and what are they buying more of? So we'll go ahead and tee up this report. And then let's come inside of Maxio and take a look. Now, this is just filtered for the last 3 months. You could do the same data set, but this gives us an opportunity to kind of highlight some of the drill down functionality where I can drill down into the expansion for January in this case. I could then drill in further and expand it out and see, in this data set, all of the sample customers. And then in this case, we've got a custom field for visualization of ICP, pretty common approach. In this Maxio demo instance, we've got Salesforce enabled. A lot of our customers pull this metadata or firmographic data from Salesforce on a nightly basis. So you have a lot of rich insights. Even at 3 months, there's quite a bit of data here. Like you can expand all of these, you could collapse them, come in and view all the different customers and their ICP score, what their MRR and ARR is by product line, if they were expanding or contracting. In this case, we're just focused on the expansion piece. So this is the first time we're starting to pull in, customer specific data points. So you can see that it's already fetched the report. Now it's parsing through the 815 different rows in the cells, pulling in all of that data and starting to actually incorporate it into my dashboard. Again, big thing here is that we're relying on Maxio to do all of the compute beforehand versus just pointing it to, the event history or the per transactions, which, is in the thousands of records to better minimize the token consumption, because we're going to want to run this on a weekly, monthly basis. And so pointing it to existing Maxio reports that do that pre-aggregation is a really important technique as you build this out. All right, so let's take a look and see what it's now added. So we scroll all the way down. All right, we can see expansion ARR. It's starting to summarize that data, 255 unique customers that are expanding, mostly in the high ICP scores. 3.9 million across more than one product line. That's an awesome signal. Still continuing to highlight this anomaly that I want to go and look at. And then it's going to finish building out the rest of these, including, because this is the first time we're giving it a report that has the per customer data, the ability to drill down and see which customers are driving that expansion. All right, so pretty cool. You can see, and I'm building this live, right? So I can come in and I can refine this approach, refine the data and the report itself, but gives you some phenomenal visibility that you can then click in and drill into. What is really important too, to take another step back and just talk about what we're truly trying to achieve here is from a product perspective, I can tailor this dashboard to the data that I care about leading the product organization. So our finance team internally at Maxio, yes, they're running Maxio for Maxio, building out all of that data. But as a stakeholder, I can come in and build out my own custom dashboard real time using that data without having to rely on a BI solution or a data warehouse or a data lake. Real time, I can kind of build this out, which is pretty nice functionality. Couple questions, just housekeeping items. Yes, we are going to send out the recording. I'm actually going to send out, a couple things that we're doing here as well to help get you started as far as some of the prompts and the techniques. So a lot of functionality that, we'll send over, including potentially one of the skills that I'm going to demo here shortly. So we'll come in. I think we got one more. Okay, nope. So we got that prompt done. Now what I'm going to do is transition to a little bit more of the orientation. So exec summary is kind of buried at this point. So let's move the exec summary up to the front. And let's now rethink the data terms. All right, so it can show, how basic these prompts are and still really generate that outcome. Another kind of piece of advice as you get into, experimenting with AI, experimenting with the Maxio MCP and going through the process. Very rarely am I sitting here, outside of a webinar and just going at this at a dedicated standpoint. This is something that is phenomenal to have on the side, right? If you're like me, you find yourself in a lot of meetings, you might have like 4 or 5 minutes here and there as you're waiting for people to join, or a meeting might end sooner. That's a phenomenal use case to come in, open this up, see the results of the work, continue to tweak it and refine it. And then I'm going to show you kind of the technique for once you get this really locked in, now what? What's the next step to kind of evolve? So we're letting it go through. This one's probably going to take a while because it's now pulling and looking at all of the data and refining those charts and those insights. So let's take a step back and come back into Maxio for a second. And what I wanted to do is hook you all on like the results, what you can get out of it. Let's take a step back and talk about how you actually configure the Maxio MCP. So in Maxio, this is kind of our core reporting engine. If you come over into the admin view and I'm logged in as an admin, it shows the integrations that are currently enabled. You'll see the Maxio MCP here. When you click on the Maxio MCP, this is already agreed to on the terms of service and terms of conditions. If you haven't yet configured the Maxio MCP, as an admin user, you'll need to go through and review and approve those. And then you can actually come in and click in and view your connectors, or you can set up and create new connectors. Some of our users might be leveraging our subscription management or advanced billing functionality. We have different user personas and permissions. So if you're inside of the subscription management piece, it's still the same configuration. It's just under integrations. Come into Maxio MCP, and this is loading that same setup and that same configuration with the same connectors. Just depends on, in my case, I'm an admin, so I've got access to all of the functionality. You can configure it in a couple different locations. Let's go through setting up a new connector. So you can come in and set up a connector. And then there are 2 kind of permissions that you can set today. We'll continue to roll out additional permissions. What's great about these things is really there's kind of 2 main buckets right now, more the analyst role. So everything that I've been demoing up until this point is a read-only access to the reports, to the underlying data. I can't actually perform any actions. So I could have been using the analyst connector. In this case, I actually created a bookkeeper, but let's go through and create an analyst. Next thing you're going to do is select your LLM of choice. Claude and ChatGPT have certain formattings that they prefer. You could also build a custom MCP, more of your advanced use case. If you're building something locally, maybe you're using Claude Code. But in this case, if you come in and you click, create the connector, it's going to give you this unique URL that you can then go ahead and copy in. Now, the great thing is, while this is very similar to an API key, it still requires you to be authenticated in, right? So, which is a nice thing when you're doing this demo. I don't have to worry about obscuring it. I'll disable this connector after the demo anyways. But once you actually enable it, you're still going to have to authenticate into Maxio. So if you're familiar with API keys, that's kind of the risk, right? You can rotate API keys, but super sensitive in the fact that if somebody has the API key, they have access to your data. And the concept of the MCP and the way that Maxio has implemented it, you both have to have the connect URL that you load into your LLM of choice. And then when you're going through the connect process, you actually have to log into Maxio using an authentication provider, provide your credentials, and then actually log in, which allows for you, if you're an admin of Maxio, to go in and suspend a user, disable a user, and have that flow through to their access inside of the LLM. So it really centralizes the user management piece and provides that additional layer of security that you otherwise wouldn't have from a API perspective. The other thing it's given you a demonstration of is the tools that are available. This is available in our help documentation along with different prompts that you can leverage inside of Maxio. But that read-only access, kind of you can see exactly what we're doing, the ability to list the underlying records if you so choose. Not really highlighting that much in today's build because we're really more focused on the reporting and the analytics side, but some awesome functionality. Now let's jump back to Claude, check on our build. We see that it's now revised the product lens and the exec summary, talking about the portfolio, the health, the risks and product decisions to potentially make. Wouldn't be surprised. Yep, it announces that anomaly again that I need to investigate. Surprised there's not more in the demo data. But the great thing is it's showing the date, showing the reports that it's referenced, when it was last updated, and really some great insights here, and some interactive functionality, kind of at my fingertips. Now, the next thing that I kind of want to show, and this is where we got roughly 20-ish minutes remaining. We're going to segment over to, okay, Chris, this is great. I've seen this before. Like I've seen people build really pretty dashboards. The challenge that I have is like, okay, if I do this again next week, I'm going to get different results, a different layout. How do I actually kind of mirror and replicate this? And then more importantly, how do I layer in kind of my branding and my look and feel? This is where I think Claude is a little bit ahead of the game as far as how they're innovating around skills. So just like I was doing with the text replace, I can do that / command, and I can start to see the skills that are available. So here at Maxio, we've created our own Maxio style guide with our branding and look and feel. So I can do something like this. Now let's revise this dashboard using the skill to match our look and feel of the branding. Now, this is something that it's now, right? I'm talking in terms of Weber Co, but I'm bleeding in a little bit, it being biased towards Maxio, right? It's going to revise this to be more brand compliant with our look and feel, our Maxio logos. In this if I was to fully build out this demo instance, I could have a Weber & Co branding and I could build a skill around that. What I want you to take away though, is how valuable skills can be, because we're going to do something here in a second to, basically build a skill that takes this entire workflow from start to finish and allows you to replay it and replicate it. But let's go ahead and let this kind of build and revise through. This one might actually take a minute or two. So let me expand upon the definition of a skill. In terms of what a skill is, it's basically a set of instructions that can be called from any chat that is repeatable in nature. Generally, the format's markdown files with a set of instructions. The neat thing is it can be used in any chat. Right, so you can see that I can use that / command and I can see the different skills that I have. Anthropic provides you with some skill creators. There are now app exchanges for skills that you can build and develop. I teased a little bit about some of the things that Max is doing from a product perspective. We are looking at publishing our own set of skills to give you a head start so you can actually build some of these dashboards and reports. If you're interested in the skill for this branding, once you see it, we could send that across as well so you can actually see what that actually looks like. But it allows you to have consistent look and feel of the branding. One of the other values, for building it as a skill is skills and connectors can be shared across your organization, right? I think that gets lost a little bit in these demos because you just see me kind of demoing it. But all of our other execs that are in this series and all of our team members have access to that same skill. So it allows for you to implement more of the look and feel. Now, this first iteration, right, some adjustments to the look and the feel. Not perfect. I can go through and revise it. It's still actually building, so it'll probably refresh a couple more times. Looks like so far it's just updated some of the CSS and the styling. But you can go through and really incorporate your branding and kind of revise that look and feel. It'll probably refresh a few more times now, including the Maxio logo and some of the branding. Could refine some of the CSS here. What's nice though is regardless of your presentations, if you're using like an AI PowerPointing solution like Gamma or slides directly, it starts to help incorporate your branding and your look and feel. So again, still going through, refreshing. Each time it'll get more and more on brand. So starting to revise, further the CSS. So great technique. We'll let this finish and then we'll talk about actually packaging this up as a skill and then some of the scheduled piece. And this is really where you go from exploring the data to building automations and workflows. Hopefully this will finish here shortly. All right, there we go. The other thing I want to point out is that it is building the HTML here as well. So you can come in and you could actually view this in Google Chrome. So you could allow it to open the file and it's building a full HTML version of the data in the dashboard. So you can come in and actually see that in a workable format. That's going to be important here in a second as we get into this next stage. So let's say you built this, maybe you were even mirroring me as we were going through the webinar and the process itself. Now what I can actually do is, given that we want to go through this full process here and rebuild / refresh this dashboard on a recurring basis, let's use skill creator to create a skill for this flow. Now, what I'm doing here, this is the standard Anthropic skill creator. What it's going to do, and this one actually will take quite a while. It ran it a little bit earlier. It's probably going to take 8 to 10 minutes. It's going through and building a lot of context. It's not necessarily using any of the Maxio data, but it's mirroring the process of what was performed to go through and create a set of instructions that can be replayed. If I come over here to customize, we're going to click on skills. We can actually look at one that I created earlier today, right? So the output of the skill is a couple things. The first is a .md. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a markdown abbreviation. It basically says, hey, here's the purpose of this dashboard. Here's what I want you to do. Always use these report IDs. We want to run them. So, run all 5 reports, parse through the results, then use the existing HTML file. Let's refresh that dashboard. Here's the preferred layout, pretty strict instructions on the do not change piece. Here's the, branding rules, incorporating in, that update, and then some, ability to kind of flag the anomalies. In between, it will show some additional, scripting data, some instructions on how to actually parse through the results. So it's actually, in this case, .py. So it's actually building Python code to take the reports and parse them into the format and the metrics that we want to highlight in this dashboard. This is the output, right? So this is one that I ran earlier today. It creates that skill for you. You can come in and actually view the other one that I imported in, which was added by Anthropic, that skill creator and what it's doing. Skills can be shared kind of universally. So what I could actually do with this skill is enable my product managers to have something similar. Now they might want to build their own skill. They might want to, and again, you can see the organizational skills versus the personal skills. I misspoke. In this case, I still have it configured as a personal skill, could share it and make it more accessible, probably. Generally, what I would do and what I've done here is you can, add an organizational skill, which is kind of a foundational dashboard, and then product managers could actually go in and revise it and make it a little bit more detailed. So just glancing over at the questions, Brett was asking, can you automate this dashboard to be weekly or monthly? Absolutely. That's what we're about to do, which is where the power really gets unlocked. And again, I am biased. I'm demoing Maxio here. It's not just Maxio's MCP. You could build this whole dashboard to be, Maxio's MCP, connect with some of our partners like, NetSuite, pull in some deeper financial data for the product use case, those insights that I was talking about. But now let's go through and actually schedule it, because that's where this process gets really, really powerful. So if you look over here on the left as well, you can come to scheduled. I won't kind of demo this one yet. I'll come in and create a new task. So here I can come in and say, we'll call this weekly CPO ARR brief. The brief description I'm going to do is, give me a weekly flash report on our ARR performance. All right, now the prompt, this is where it gets a little different. So for the prompt, I'm going to say using this skill, and then I can come in and select that skill. This is the one that I previously created. So I'll select that. Let's regenerate. So I'm going to stop here, right? But notice what I could be doing. This is when people start talking in terms of like agents and agentic, right? At this point, I've really just been using a chat interface, input in, results back. When you start to combine, in this case in Claude Cowork, the concept of skills with MCP connectors, so that skill is calling the Maxio MCP connector with schedules, that's when you start to really blur the lines between, is it an agent? You can get into the strict definition of it. Is it actually making some decisions? Where at this point, I wouldn't necessarily, in my mind, consider this an agent. Where it would be an agent is like you start building in, if one product line, has X, increase or decrease, run this skill, which might trigger Slack messages. That's when it's actually starting to make some decisions on the logic, and it starts to mirror more of an agentic approach. Now, I'm going to leave this pretty basic because I don't want to, I think everybody in these kind of demos or shows wants to, overly impress. Sometimes it's just this simple. You can come in and just do this, change the frequency to, weekly, and then I can set this up to run, to Brett, to your question, Friday mornings at 9 a.m., right? That works for my schedule. I'm going to go ahead and create this scheduled task. Now, if I come in, I can always edit this. I could add more instructions. I could add more skills. I could change, the run, but then I can click run now, and it'll actually go ahead and, actually that was the previous one I created. All right, I can come in and run now, and it'll run that task in that dashboard. All right. Beauty is like I can do this automatically. Now you can get into the dispatch, which is really cool, where you could actually like trigger these to run on my machine locally from my phone. But let's take a look back. Looks like this already finished. And it created, it's actually prompting me to allow it to create the skills, right? So this is, if you didn't catch, I went back to where we were building before, where it's saying, okay, let me go ahead and build that skill out. But let's come back into my scheduled runs. This is the one that I did previously. All right, let's take a look at what the result of that run is. So this is one that I scheduled. I guess I ran it earlier today. right? So I ran it manually. It ran the skill. It pulled in all of the report data. It used the connectors that I had, selected, and then it went ahead and updated my dashboard. And what was really cool, because I said, "Hey, let's go ahead and email a summary," and it's like, "Hey, Chris, you don't have the Gmail connector enabled, so I can't actually, draft an email in this case. Let me go ahead and give you a weekly summary from an HTML perspective." It's gone in and kind of updated this as best it can with some of the inputs and the variables. I can come in and actually view the HTML of it. I think I'll need to refresh the data, probably because I'm running a run right now on it. It's bleeding in, but you can generally come in and see it updating real time. The couple other questions they're asking, like, where are these files actually stored? Now, what's really neat is when you're using Claude Cowork, you can organize projects. So projects, like if in this case, I could build a project for, my MCP demos and all my different prompts. But the other thing that it does is it allows for you to come in and actually view these files. So I can click show in Finder, and it actually creates those outputs automatically in HTML form or in Markdown form, like that email summary. So it'll go ahead and create those files. Now, an important thing to note is that this is all running locally. So these are files that are being stored locally. It's not an actual hosted web page, even though it's the Markdown files, or in this case, that visualization. Better if I go back to the prompts that I was working on over here. Right, these visualizations and that the charts and the graphs, right? This is all running locally. So the HTML produced is HTML that I can open up, and it opens up in a web browser, but it's not actually hosted anywhere. You can't really share it. You can get into how you actually host these workflows, et cetera. But keep in mind, like, this orientation is more towards how do I feel empowered as a product leader to get the insights tailored to what I'm building and the look and feel of what I need. So here's another example, right? So this is one that I was working on earlier. That's a little bit the same flow, but we finished with the Maxio kind of look and feel and the branding to it. But this is where you can actually really incorporate your own branding and get that polished, crisp report in a matter of minutes, right? We've been sitting here talking through it, coaching you through the process, but these builds, once you get familiar with it, can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. I think the reality that we're all now finding ourselves in is there's more data and insights. It's now, how do you unlock that data, serve it up in a digestible format to make it actionable? And that's really what this is about, is leveraging the Maxio MCP to do just that for these different roles and skill sets. We're starting to come up on time, so let me take a look and see if there's any other questions that we want to run through. You can trigger that manual run, or you can build the schedules. Here I built a couple of the schedules. You'll see a lot of content out there. I mean, YouTube's a phenomenal source for tips and tricks of how to build different schedules and different automations. Maxio MCP can definitely be a part of that. But you can use all of these concepts for a variety of providers. A lot of software providers are, kind of starting to build their MCPs. A lot of them are in betas, et cetera. But as more and more people develop these connectors, the easier and the better it will be to pull in these insights and generate activities like this. I got another question here around, okay, Chris, you showed how to configure the MCP inside of Maxio. What do you then do with that URL? Now, you do need to be an organization admin, or maybe you have your own Claude Pro account. But when you come to the configuration settings, you're going to see, when you go to organization settings, you're going to see connectors. The ability to add that. So these are connectors that I have just enabled in this demo environment. I can actually come up here to add and then custom, and I will select web, give it a name. So, call it Maxio MCP, right? Acme Co. That URL that was generated previously, you're going to paste that in here, right? And then you're going to click add. Once you add it, you'll actually be able to then authenticate in, and it's now one of your connectors that's available for you individually. Adding the connector here at the organization level allows any user of Maxio to then be able to authenticate in and actually manage that connector on an individual basis. Some other tips and tricks that I didn't get a chance to show is I can come in and manage my existing connectors. This is where I get really excited about the way that Claude presents this. For the read-only tools, I've got it set so I can always allow it. One of those, when I was creating the skill, it prompted me as saying, "Hey, Chris, are you sure you want to perform that?" That's the needs approval. Or if I don't ever want to do something, I could block it, or I could do custom permissions and manage them individually, right? So if I know, hey, I never want to actually manage my product catalog from the MCP, right? I could block that task. I could block creating a coupon. I want to ask for approval before it creates a customer, before it creates a product family, right? And so on. I can manage these and tailor these on an individual basis to add further safeguards. So we talked a little bit about the authentication, it being like you need the URL, you need to authenticate into Maxio through our authorization provider. And then you get even further granularity in being able to say, hey, always ask for permission for these types of tools or these performance items. The thing to keep in mind is if you're scheduling a task, when you schedule the task, right, you might always need to allow certain tasks to run so that it doesn't stop mid-schedule. But you have the ability to kind of tailor the granularity of those permissions from that view as well. Let's see if there's any other questions or comments. I think that's the most of them. If you have any, please put it in the chat. Happy to address any questions or comments at this point. But hopefully you found this really beneficial. We went through and start to finish the full build of a dashboard, leveraging a few of the Maxio reports. The thing I didn't get to that I think is important to highlight as well is if I wanted to evolve these reports, this view, I could build some recurrence to actually pull customer records or subscription records specifically and see that data. But the possibilities are quite endless, especially when you then layer in, other sources of data on top of this base that's provided, through this dashboard. All right, not seeing too many other questions, so we're about to come up on time. So let me pop back over to our slides here so we can wrap up. There were a couple additional resources. If you're existing Maxio customer, you have access to our help documentation. There you're going to find an MCP overview. There's quite a few example prompts in there, along with best practices for configuration. If you're not a customer and you're a prospect and we're just trying to learn how Maxio's viewing AI, would love to have a conversation with you, see what you're doing on the billing, RevRec, and insight space today, see if we're potentially a great fit. And then, also want to plug our next episode. So this is a series. What we're trying to do very intentionally is build upon the workflows that we're presenting. So if you go back and watch Brandon's workflow, it's going to be very much, hey, how do I use mobile? How do I use the chat? How do I, have broad questions that I'm trying to answer? Versus my approach was, how do you build reports that are already kind of, I know what I'm looking to build, but build a dashboard, set it up for a schedule, build a skill. As we continue to iterate on these, examples, we'll kind of build on those concepts. So Monica, our head of sales, is going to be going through some of the insights that you can generate and processes and workflows from a sales perspective or go-to-market leader perspective. Really excited about that session. I think it'll be really beneficial. And with that, thank you so much. I know it's, a lot of time out of your day to, join and talk about Maxio. I'm obviously very excited, very bullish of what we're doing here at Maxio on the AI front. Hopefully we're trying to make that content digestible and actionable for you as a user. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out if it hits you after the fact. We're going to follow up with the recording and the slides. That skill for the branding piece, we'll package that up. If you're interested in it, we can send that over as well. So you can actually have a template for how you might be able to rebrand and create a skill for your own branding and look and feel. So we'll do that as well. And then stay tuned. We are continuing to look at developing and building out a set of skills that'll allow you to build what we saw today and some other use cases. So again, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day.